Happy Friday. So we're doing things a little bit different this time, and I'm going to go ahead and actually record going over this information for your notes and for some questions. This is called the nullification crisis. This is going to deal with Andrew Jackson, John C. Calhoun, his vice president, and also a little state called South Carolina. So the first thing we're going to start with is vocabulary. Got a couple words here. Nullify, to cancel an action or a law, so it's going to be very important for this. Compromise, an agreement or settlement between two parties. Convention, an assembly of delegates to discuss important matters. Now, tariff, we have to remember this one even for the STAR test. It is a tax on goods coming from another country. So if you have a product coming from France, coming into America, that's going to have a tariff on it. Here is your objective. Students will be able to explain the problems of the 1828 and 1832 tariffs and how the problems were resolved. So we're going to start off with the North versus South situation here. Northern states have become an industrial or factory-based economy. They don't like other countries competing with their goods. So that's what it's going to look like. When we talk about the North, we're talking about the big cities. Southern states have become an agrarian or farming-based economy. They like the choice of buying goods made in other countries because they're usually cheaper. And so this is what you'd see in the South. So what happens to the U.S. money when it is spent on foreign goods? Well, they're taken out of our economy. We no longer use that money. It's now over there in Europe. So the tariff of abomination. In 1828, the federal government passed a tariff or a tax on foreign goods that taxed them 50% higher. Northern businesses and states like this. The main reason why is because that made competition that much more expensive. So they didn't have to lower their prices, while the foreign goods, well, their prices went up. Southern states were outraged and called it the tariff of abomination. Okay? Abomination means it is disgusting. It is something that is very terrible. Okay? Kind of like this picture here. Look at Bugs Bunny here. Well, you got the monster here. He is the tariff of 1828, and Bugs Bunny represents the South in this situation. Okay. Congress raises the tariffs. Congress puts the highest tariff ever on foreign-made goods. They wanted to force the South and the West to buy American. The Southern states were upset. They liked the choice of cheaper goods. John C. Calhoun led the argument against the tariff. He said states had the right to nullify any law they feel is unconstitutional. And you can kind of see from this picture here how a tariff is going to work. You've got an actual picture here of what looks like cloth, $4 a roll. You're going to add 25% tariff, which is $1, and now it's $5 compared to the American made for also $4. So you can see which one would probably be bought. Jackson versus Calhoun. Oh, they don't like each other at all. John Calhoun wanted Jackson to nullify or to get rid of that tariff for the South. There he is with his crazy hair. Jackson did not like Calhoun and didn't support his views on the tariff. Calhoun resigned as his vice president and later is elected as a senator of South Carolina. So in 1832, Congress creates a lower tariff for goods. It's not good enough, though, for the South. So now we have South Carolina's decision. What are they going to do? South Carolina called a state convention to discuss the tariff. Delegates voted to nullify or to get rid of this new tariff. They also agreed that South Carolina will leave the Union if the federal government forces them to pay it. So that's very important. This is the first time that a state is actually voting to leave the Union, and they got a good chance of actually passing it. And we'll discuss South Carolina later because they play an important role in the Civil War. So Jackson's reaction. Jackson warned South Carolina that laws of the United States must be executed. So now it's a fight between the federal government and the state government. Which one's going to win? He asked Congress to give him the right to use the Army and Navy to enforce the law. So now we might have ourselves a civil war. Congress passes what's called the Force Bill, allowing the president to send troops into South Carolina. Jackson said, "If one drop of blood be shed there in defiance of the laws of the United States, I will hang the first person of them I can get my hands on, the first tree I can find." So in other words, he's looking for Calhoun and he wants to hang him up high. So Clay to the rescue. And here's Henry Clay. That's the guy that, yes, the corrupt bargain we just talked about. Kentucky Senator Henry Clay worked out a compromise. A new tariff act would gradually lower it over the next 10 years to what it was set in 1816. Jackson agreed but didn't like it. He'd rather force South Carolina to back down, thought that they would be encouraged by their success and would try to leave the Union again. Well, they still went with it. They assigned it. South Carolina backed down. Federal government backed down. But both of them claim a victory on this one. And what this actually leads us to, as you can see in that picture, at least is something that's going to be very bad for the country. So the outcome. The sectional interests of the North and the South truly came into conflict for the first time. The conflicts between the North and South would lead to secession or leaving, and ultimately the American Civil War. And this event was one of the causes of the Civil War. It showed the differences between the North and the South was becoming a little bit too much for the country itself, and there was nothing to bring them together.